Hello, everybody. Good to be back. I'm glad you made it. Okay, we're going to go through another opening crash course. This time from the white side of the four pawns attack in Alekhine's defense. I highly recommend the four pawns attack versus the Alekhine defense, especially if you're an aggressive type of player. Again, we're going to use my methodology that I highly recommend for learning openings, and that is going to be starting with miniature games. So again, those are games under 30 moves, usually very short games. And the purpose of that is so that you can see what happens, especially if, in this case, if white has its way. You want to see all the plans clearly expressed. And there's no better way to do that than a game that is very short and usually filled with errors from, of course, the losing side. That way you can see the plans very clear. And then after you get a feel or for these plans, then you start playing some blitz, some bullet games, etc., etc. And then once you start feeling comfortable, I suggest you do the same exact thing, but with the other side of the board. You look for miniatures from the black side. Do the same thing. That way you're familiar with the plans of both sides. And then you start looking for more competitive games. Then you start looking for longer games to actually analyze the middle game and so forth. And I guarantee your overall chess will improve, but you definitely will pick up a rapid understanding of the opening. And probably after this video, you'll probably be able to play the four pawns attack, and blitzing bullet games. So let's get right into it. This first game is from Vienna, 1928, between the great master Richard Reti with the white pieces and Sandor Takex with the black pieces. So fasten your seatbelts. This is a quick barn burner. C4, knight b6, and this initiates our four pawns attack. So just right off the back, you can see white is being very aggressive, and he's trying to just push black off the board. Okay, and make black pay for not setting up pawns in the center. And of course, the Alekhine is born out of the height of the hyper modern era in chess, where it was all about attacking the center with pieces, right? It's Nimzovich's teachings just on steroids, right? Just forget about setting up pawns in the center, but we're gonna attack the center with pieces, and we're gonna prove that the big white center is weak. All right, so the four pawns attack is, the classical player's way of saying, you know, hey, take that hypermodern stuff and stuff it. I'm just gonna run you off the board for not obeying and following the classical principles. D takes e5, F takes e5, and knight c6. Now let me just say real quick, you basically have two lines here in the Alekhine. One is knight c6, and then you have lines without knight c6, which begin with c5. Okay, the c5 lines are more aggressive, and we'll see a couple of miniatures in that also. But I just want you to know there's two main approaches. Knight c6 is what's played the most and more solid. c5 is heavily relying on piece play, and those lines have kind of fallen out of favor. But you will see that from time to time. This game continued. Knight c6, putting pressure on the white center. Bishop e3, protecting it. Bishop f5. Knight f3. And now you see knight b4, which is one of the old lines, threatening the fork at c2, right? The check with the knight. Knight a3 is played. e6. Black continues development, right? Everything looks normal. Bishop e2. You might say, how can this be a miniature? a6. Castle. And the reason, one of the reasons behind a6 is black is intending on attacking the white center with move c5. So castle is played. So a6, preventing a future move like knight b5, for example. And also, the jump here eventually, say after something happens with this bishop. But a6 is often a move that's played these positions. This is why after castle you see rook c8, planning on playing c5. Notice the two knights here guarding d5 along with the pawn and the queen. Black would plan on breaking down the white center. Queen b3, which is against the move c5 at this point. And if black wanted to continue on with his plan to c5, he would have to reinforce this knight or protect this knight by playing a5. But thus he would be giving up this square. So for him, it's counterintuitive to then, after playing a6, play a5. So he goes on with his plan c5 anyway. And after d takes c5, the game is over because there's no legitimate way to protect this knight here. Okay, after he captures, bishop takes c5, then just bishop takes c5, rook takes c5, and then the knight will fall. So that's a 13 mover right there. Just note that the four pawns attack, when played correctly, will put black under a lot of pressure. Of course, theory shows that black is okay, like in a lot of openings. However, black is forced to play very accurately and walk on eggshells, right? Usually for a lot of moves, and this is good because pressure will burst pipes. A lot of times players will consume a lot of time on the clock trying to make sure they're playing accurately, just due to the raw aggression of white in the position. This game is from 1930, Rudolf Spielman versus Edgar Colley with the black pieces, and that's the same Colley who founded the Colley system. So here you can see that black has delayed the move knight c6 and also the exchange in the center so far. D takes, F takes, so we transpose. E6, notice knight c6 had not been played yet. Knight f3, bishop takes b1. And the idea is to play bishop b4 check without the knight being able to come out and defend. So bishop b4 check. The bishop is forced back. Bishop d2, queen e7, bishop d3, knight c6. More pressure on the center. And black is intending on castling queen side with more pressure on the d4 square. Castle, bishop d2, queen d2. And now you have this opposite wing castling, which is another theme that you'll see. And now you see c5. Now, one thing I want to say here is that often with the opposite wing castling situations, since white already has a lot of space in the center, usually his attack on the opposite wing will develop faster. Notice black doesn't have anything going on yet on the king side, whereas white is already to say play b4 if he wanted to, b4, b5, etc. All right. See, black has to be preoccupied in battling the center first before he can initiate anything on the wings, and conversely, white is trying to fortify his center, solidify his center. This is a big advantage for white. If he can solidify the center, then it's a big advantage. So this is where most of the battle will take place. And what you'll see a lot in these games is white sacrificing pawns and sometimes pieces because he has such a big space advantage that he can do these things for the initiative. You have to be prepared to do so in play in this manner. That's why I said this opening for white is suitable for an aggressive player. So we can see black here is putting a lot of pressure on d4. Let's provoke c5. And now he plays knight d7 here. Knight d5 is also possible. Knight d7, b4. Just like I said, notice how white's attack is all ready to go already. f6, trying to counter in the center, right? But plays rook fe1. Of course, e takes f6 is better, but we're not going to get into deep analysis here. We're just trying to learn the opening real quick. D takes e5, rook hf8, queen c3, and now knight d takes e5. Colley makes a mistake here. He probably should have opted for move like a5 That he takes, knight takes the e5, knight takes e5, queen f6, and he probably thought he had some tactics, involving queen f2 or something like that. But after bishop c4, he was forced to resign. Another note I want to just make real quick is sometimes is when black plays f6. Notice that there's sometimes a weakness created on e6, and you'll see this in studying this opening. Usually, black will castle on the same side, and then play the move f6 to try to tear down the center, and then white's game will become more positional in nature. So that's another key with the 4 pawns attack is sometimes you're not gonna have this big raging attack, but you'll just have an advantage in space, and you'll be able to go into a nice end game utilizing this space advantage and the cramping effect that it has on the black position. And after f6 is played and e takes f6, a lot of times you'll be able to attack that e pawn straight down the straight down the e file. 1955, Fudera with the white pieces versus Giorgio Parecchia. I'm going to blitz through this real quick. I want to get to these games. Again, normal setup, knight c6, 4 pawns attack. And there's what I'm talking about. There's the f6 here. It's played, knight c3, because it is imperative for black to tear down the white center. Okay? a4. Rook c1. So all this discourages black from castling on the queen side. F takes e5. And just like that, and this is what I was talking about, black is forced to play very accurately because of the pressure, right? He can't really afford to make any mistakes. Here, if he just castles, no, he has a respectable position. Castles, etc. He's still under pressure, but the castles be good. Here, he decides to play an innocent looking move. F takes e5 and gets caught in the middle of the board. So d5 now. Okay. Knight d4. See, the problem is capturing here leaves this piece vulnerable. So e takes d5, c takes d5. Now where is this knight going to go? Let's say here. And now knight takes e5, hitting the queen. And notice how this bishop is only protected by the queen. So that forces move like queen c8. And then black's position just falls apart. I'm not going to keep going into the line, but you can see the point here. Just a small error like that, and the position just deteriorates. So knight d4 was played, and again, knight e5 is captured. Knight takes e2, queen takes e2. The queen has to move, d6. Attacking the knight, so bishop d4 is played. Black still tries to play aggressively with c5, and then just gets hit with knight b5. And black had to resign there. The queen b8, rook takes f5 is coming. And this is how quick it can be over. Okay. Let's keep going. 1956, Holas versus Sator. Again, the classical line with knight c6. And you can see here, d5 is played. And d5 is going to be available, people, after knight f3 is played. That's the idea, is protect the e-pawn with the f3, the knight on f3, and then d5. This was a common line. You'll see different stuff from black nowadays. With bishop, sometimes the bishop will come to g4, right? Looks like it's losing the tempo. But this is still one of the main lines. d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, knight b4, because the idea from black is to provoke white into this over-exaggeration of the center. See, and now you can see there's 3 pieces attacking the d5 pawn. All right, but it's not that easy to tear white center down. Knight d4. Again, this is a common theme to remember, is the hanging bishop. Bishop goes to g6, and maybe the bishop should have stayed home or stayed on this diagonal rather than just went to d7 after what happens, because now the bishop is pushed off the h3 to c8 diagonal, and now bishop b5 check is played, and if the king is now forced to move, right? This looks dubious, right? After a3, right? This a3 hitting the knight. This e6. Remember, just think aggression, right? e6 here. So king f8 was played. The other move is c6. Again, brush up on your tactics. If you can't see that, that's dubious also. Just take here, d takes e6. So king f8. So already black is in hot water. Look at white's position compared to black's. King g8, and the pieces just start flooding in. And just like that, now more accurate here for black would have been just bishop takes f5, right, to try to kill off some of these aggressive pieces. Instead, he sticks to his guns and he says, hey, I'm going to snatch a pawn in the center. But now watch what happens. Knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5. Did you see the tactic? If queen takes d5, then knight takes e7. Okay, this is why the knight on f5 had to be eliminated. So he plays c6 and then just queen d8, game over. 1957, Jonathan Penrose, brother of the famous scientist Roger Penrose, with the white pieces versus a player named Payne. Again, we're just going to speed through this because I want to show you some of the Grandmaster games just to show you that this opening is very strong, and even Grandmasters get caught in these miniatures. This is what I was speaking about earlier, that sometimes black will play positionally, castle on the same side, but now he has this isolated pawn. White's position is very sound. I mean, there's no pawn weakness. He has advantage in the center. He has more space. Right, his pieces are fully developed. Okay, the onus is on black to prove something here. Okay, bishop is traded off, and now even though white covers his weakness on e6, black covers his weakness on e6. Notice that white still just simply retains the space advantage. He just solidifies his position. And I wanted to show you this game because this is another way to play. All the games don't have to end in big tactical melees. Sometimes you could just take your space advantage. And here he just squeezes black here. The reason why black is forced to resign here is because the rook on g6 is trapped. h5 is coming. And there's nothing that he can really do to save that piece. Next game. Keogh versus Marcus, 1961. Again, I'm going to speed through this game because you're getting a point by now, I'm sure, how to play this opening. Again, there's f6, right? This was a common way to play. Again, there's no weaknesses here for white in the position, but you have to be prepared just to play positionally. Okay, don't try to go with the caveman approach all the time. Black tries to rightfully so to get rid of his weakness on the e-file, but this allows white to just push past him. And you can see that 4-3 pawn majority on the queen side, and look at that beautiful piece play. And again, this is what it looks like when white gets exactly what he wants, and black is forced to resign. We're going to go into some Grandmaster games. We're going to close it out. So here's a game from the IBM Amsterdam tournament. And with the white pieces, you have Borislav Ivkov, who was 25-30 at the time, versus a young Jan Timman, who was 25-40 at the time, with the black pieces. And Jan Timman played the Alekhine on and off, and his most famous game in the Alekhine comes in a loss against Nigel Short, where Nigel Short played the famous King March game. Check that out if you haven't seen it. So typical Alekhine's defense. Remember, I was telling you there was basically two lines. One with knight c6, six knight c6, and one with the c5. So here's the one with c5. It's a little more aggressive, but riskier. Castles, c takes d4, knight e4. Notice how black just ignores that, right? Because white ignores that because he doesn't want to trade pieces right away. Okay, this is akin to the Queen's Gambit accepted line where the pawn just sits on d4 for a little while. White simply continues on with his attack. Notice he's willing to sacrifice. So he attacks f7 here, but he leaves the e-pawn, right? Because black here is behind the development. So white is trying to accelerate his attack, right? So he gives up the pawn but gains time. Queen g3, knight b d7, and of course if black can consolidate here, he'll be winning. Bishop f4, but look at all the time that is being gained by white. Queen b6, bishop takes e5, and just like that, f6, just like that, white is winning already. Bishop takes b4, queen takes b4, knight d6 check. The king is just caught out in the middle of the board. And I wanted to show you that this happens to grandmasters too. 4 pawns attack, if you can grasp it, is very aggressive and to the point. If you like attacking chess. Let's go to the next game. Again, Grandmaster Games. Catronius, 25.99 versus Alekhine Defense Expert and Alexander Baburin. This was from the Olympiad in 2004. Again, notice the delay with the move c5 from black, or knight c6 from black rather. And he holds back the pawn. Also, so he decides to play d5 here. So b takes, e takes, and now c5. Again, this is more of a positional approach, as the position becomes blocked in nature. But again, when the position becomes, like this, white still has a nice space advantage, and you're going to just utilize your space advantage, okay, and continue to push black off the board, okay, because this is not good for black either, because black has not succeeded, right, in really breaking down the white center, right. You have that pawn on e6 is dangerous, and you have a lot of space in the black position. Okay, black is not lost here, but he has not succeeded in his goals of destroying the white center. Okay, white center is established and supported now, and white basically has an easy game from here out. Queen c2, g6, h3, and here white decides that he's going to attack on the king side with g4. F takes g4, h takes g4, f5 is played. Bishop h4. I like this move, getting rid of the bad bishop. White's getting rid of his bad bishop for black's good bishop. Queen takes e7, and now knight g5 with the attack on the h7 square. C takes d4 from Baburin. Rook takes h7, queen b4, and then simply king e2, and there's no way for black to stop the idea of rook a to h1 followed by rook h to h8 check followed by the checkmate. And black had to resign here in 22 moves. Amazing game. And again, this shows you the advantage of having space in the position. Okay, it's just having space gives you more room to maneuver your pieces. All right, to do what you have to do in order to attack your opponent. And that's the thing. Um, Black, you had a decent game, but again, when you're cramped in your position, your opponent has a lot of control in the position. Um, you cannot afford to really make any errors, and that's the problem. Um, in the opening that Black is run into a lot of times. It's not that he's lost right out of the gate. It's just that he makes like one mistake and the game is over, right? Because the more control the person has in the position, right, the less room for error that you have, and that's what you see here. Okay, all this space in the beginning for White, right, doesn't make Black lost, right? But as the game progresses and Black makes little minor error, that little minor error becomes a huge error. And basically at the knight g5, there's no way to to stop the attack on down the h file. Okay? Let's go on. Here's Gadwin Jones, 2593 versus Alexander Babaroon again. The black pieces. So we can see that here Babaroon placed the move c5. So he's avoiding the main line with knight c6. Right? He doesn't want to go into that, and he's playing these offbeat lines with c5 and such, right? Trying to counterattack the center as quick as possible with the c pawn. E takes d5, c takes d5. Notice again the space that White has. Bishop e7, castles, castles. Queen e4. What is the question again? Is what is Black going to do about the space that White has? Right? He has to somehow neutralize the center. Perhaps f5. A move like that is good, right? You have to have some kind of idea of neutralizing the center. If you can't tear it down, you have to neutralize it. Maybe f5 and then try to blockade somehow. Instead, he plays knight c7. Okay, and now he has this threat of perhaps capturing here and then picking up this pawn. This is met by rook d1. Again, ideas like f5 or even f6 come to mind here. All right, you have to do something about that center. Queen e8, and now White gets to play f5. All right, and now it's really bad because now if f6, then White has e6. So to me, I think Black missed his opportunity to try to play a move like f5 here or f6. Okay, but again, that's analysis for another time. These are miniature games. And we can see what happens when White just has his way. He just pushes the pawns up. G takes, E takes, and just like that, it's already pretty much over. Bishop takes f4, throws in the check first, picks up the bishop. Knight e5, hitting the queen. Queen e7, and now d6. Right, simple fork. The game is absolutely over. 23 moves. Why is it over? Because at the d6, at the rook captures, rook takes, queen takes. Notice the queen is now pulled on the unprotected square, d6. So simple check right here. The king is forced to move because the only other way to protect the king is by giving up the queen for the knight on g6. So king h8, knight takes f7 would take place. Rook takes f7 followed by picking up the queen. Why does this happen? Because of the space advantage, the cramping situation in White, Black not counterattacking when it was time. 2012, Bromberger, 25-13 versus Teskey, another Alekhine defense specialist. It was 25-50 at the time. Again, you see this offbeat approach with g5. And if you notice, with all these approaches, whether black plays knight c6 early, which is the main line, classical line, early c5, or here g5, what's the purpose? The main purpose is to try to dismantle the huge center. That's all of these moves or for that same purpose. Okay? So G5 is weird looking, right? Not adhering to classical principles, right? But here there's no, I mean, there's no like outright way to refute it, right? But you know that okay, this move doesn't really conform to, uh, classical principles. Of course, the main idea is to draw the F pawn away and then play D takes E5, right? Which would give black, a nice game here. I mean, so white attacks G4, G takes F4, G takes F5. A lot of tactics played right now, and now you see E6. Okay. The idea, of course, is you have all these light squares open. Light square bishop is gone for black, and so white starts attacking. So queen c8, e takes f7. So you have this wild position already that obviously black was willing to go into. King d8, bishop h3, h5, f6 hitting the queen, and already black is in tremendous trouble. Okay, knight g2, bishop h6, rook g1. I mean, who would want to play this? Black is lost already. These are two grandmasters over 2,500. Black is already busted. And c5, 18 moves over. Okay, so g5, interesting move, but I'm not too sure about it. Okay, especially after e6, this perhaps move like bishop g7 or something like that. But the king is going to get misplaced. I mean, very, very risky move. And here's the last game right here between Farouk Amanatov, 2591, versus a player named Levin, 2508. And this is a blitz game. And this is the last one. And after this, like again, you should have, basic ideas of the Alekhine defense, 4 pawns attack for white. So again, his classical line, right? This game's from 2015. And remember the game I showed you where after knight d4, the bishop had got off the diagonal. So here, does the right thing. He stays on the diagonal, but he gets hit by e6. F takes e6. F takes e6. Bishop c6. Okay, now the onus here is on black again. Now black is almost got what he wants, right? That center has been broken down. Remember, it's a mighty 4 pawn center. Now there's only 1 pawn in the center, but it's on an annoying square in e6, right? Very annoying square. So if black can mitigate that, right, work around it or capture that pawn, he will be in good standing and be a pawn up. Okay. However, black must play very accurately. So queen g4. Okay. Black plays a natural move, castles. Now, to me, this is a critical move. Again, not going into big analysis here. The reason is because this bishop is right here on c6. Of course, not that move, not g3. So that means the king has to move. So after king e2 or king d2, make your pick. So to me, that is the critical investigation right there. Black castles, which gives white the opportunity to castle right there. And to me, this is a nice advantage for white. That pawn on e6 is not a liability at this point. right? It's more of a thorn in black side. Knight 6 d5, knight f5. Notice the opposition between the rook and d on d1 and the queen on d8. Gives up the exchange, and now it's all downhill here. Just a nice chess here. And black just loses a piece and loses the game. Reason why, again, the old fork theme. He can't play queen. He can't play queen takes because of knight takes e7. With queen e4, and the game is over. So that is it for our little crash course in the Alekhine's four pawn attack. Um, just some quick comments in conclusion. The four pawns attack without without playing knight c6 early is kind of like the more offbeat continuation. Right? Never. It's more tactical, like when players play c5 early and things like that, or you saw the move g5. It's more tactical in nature, and black is more opted for piece play. And as you can see, that approach, although it's more aggressive and scary looking, just remember that you have the space advantage and you have the center advantage, and that usually those early fights that black tries to start in a position is going to be more assistance to you as the white player. Okay. There's a reason why those aren't the main lines. They're more of like surprise value, to create a lot of smoke and mirrors in the position, and try to create so much melee on the board that the white player loses his way. But the main line is going to be knight c6, where black tries to, just attack classically, the center, as you saw, in the last game, and as you see in this position right here. Okay. And then you see knight moves like knight f3. A lot of times you'll see too nowadays is after knight f3 you'll see bishop g4. But you'll still see this classical line, which allows d5. The move bishop g4 stops the move d5. And then, of course, a lot of times you won't even see knight f3 here. You'll see the move bishop e2 first. And then knight f3, which stops the bishop g4 maneuver. So you see the back and forth, in the this particular opening. But again, that was a quick crash course. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And now you see what it looks like when white has its way. So go out there, play some bullet games, play some blitz games, and crush people with this four pawns attack. And like I said, then do the same thing with black. I might make another video just showing the black side, what happens when black gets his way. Right? Then you look at that video, and then you'll see it from both sides. And again, you do the same thing. You play bullet, blitz, and just get a feel for the position. Don't even worry about the theory so much, right? And then once you get that feel, then you start looking at some more competitive games in the position. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, donate to my channel, support my channel, and I'll see you guys next time.